And it will be me and all of you all the way through. Styles and Watkins and celebrity birthdays coming up shortly. Joining us right now in his beautiful Boston Red Sox hat. And I assume, is that your hotel room, Brenden Nunes?
We are in the hotel room.
Is that now when you say we, does that mean somebody else is there with you?
No.
Or are you speaking in the third person?
I guess I went third person for a
Good
second.
for you.
I am in the hotel room.
That's exactly what you should be doing. Speaking of the third person, dude, you are the I'm promoting you to Senior Kings Insider today for coming on the program. Sorry, Frankie, who also just got promoted recently as well. How is it going so far in Vegas? I see you in dark clothes, and it's very hot down there. So there you go.
Yeah, actually, it hasn't been too bad. I was joking with my Uber when I first got here. It might not be as hot here as it was in Sacramento the previous week. So works out all right. A short little walk from the stadium. And I've been in the sun a little bit. It hasn't been too bad out here weather-wise.
I would say it reminds me of walking in a hairdryer sometimes, especially when there's a breeze there blowing through the buildings. But Brenden, this is your second visit to Summer League. Third. Wow. Look at you all grown up. It's NBA Mecca, is it not? And the sights and sounds. And I'm putting you on the spot here because maybe there isn't one, but what's like the most random person you've seen so far?
I think I walked past Sedarius Thornwell the other day, and I believe it was him. But yeah, I think Chris Watkins has described it as like the Coachella of NBA. And I feel like that's pretty accurate. You're running into people left and right. A lot of times I'm like, I think I know who that's somebody, but I can't put my finger on it. The whole Chinese national team is downstairs in this hotel a bunch. Mike Brown eating dinner the same place as me and some friends the other night. So people everywhere for sure.
Were you at all tempted to buy him an iced tea and have it delivered? I mean, it's Vegas, so probably a $4 investment. And then when the waiter tells him that that iced tea is from the table over there, you all raise your glasses to him.
I should have thought about it. We did think about sending something over, but decided against it. Let him have his time.
It is Coachella
because it's supposed to get to speak to him for what it's worth later today. And get his opinion on DeMar DeRozan, obviously, addition and everything else going on.
I'm sure you were going to ask this already, so apologies. I'm 100% positive you're going to ask this already, but on the slight, if negligible chance you weren't, please do ask him, because we'll play this audio as soon as we get it from you. Please do ask him about the coaching situation there. They're losing coaches like flies. Lindsey Harding, the latest to leave. And, we always focus on players and those types of transactions, but they've got a bench to fill up a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. They made an addition earlier in the year, a guy coming over from Gonzaga that has some familiarity with Domantas Sabonis, and Mike Brown has a good relationship with Mark Few, is my understanding. So kind of taking some of his assistance. But yeah, obviously Lindsey, Jordy moving on. Davidas Dolke is also following Jordy. My understanding is I believe Luke Laux is going to be moving to the front of the bench with a little bit of a larger role, but certainly some spots that need to be filled out. So I'll do some digging and definitely make sure to ask for you.
They lose Dolke's one Florida State player. They gain another in the front of the bench with Luke Laux, which is fantastic. And, Doug Christie as well, heading up that summer league team and slowly kind of sliding towards, sliding up closer and closer to Mike Brown. And, watching him down the Brenden, I'm sure you probably come away with the same take we do, although we're biased because we love Doug. But boy, this is going to be an NBA head coach someday.
Yeah, gotta love Doug. I think it's hard not to. And I think that this is a good learning experience for him. We saw Laux go through the same thing the year prior, Jordy the year before that. And I think it helps not only with an eventual head coaching spot, if that's what Doug is looking for down the line, but I think it helps guys be a better assistant. It puts you in the shoes of the head decision maker. So, Luke Laux talked last year about how it made him realize he could probably shorten the things that he's communicating to Mike and be more efficient in that way, realizing everything else he has going on, or, the media aspect of it. After that game with 31 turnovers, their first game in Vegas, Doug kind of chewed into them a little bit. And I think there's a right way to do that in media. And I think that Doug did that, but is still sort of figuring some of that stuff out, balance between being a motivator and X's and O's guy and all that stuff. So I think it's a useful process, not only for eventually being a head coach himself, but also improving as an assistant.
Listen, our job's to analyze and to take bias, even admitted bias, out of the equation, reading in between the lines of what you just said. And I think it's a fair point if you're making it. When you talked about Doug in the media, when you talked about a learning process, do you think it might have come off as a little too much Doug the player and competitor and not enough of Doug the coach and motivator?
I think that he's done a fine job with the balance. I think that it's just sort of a feeling out process in a way. And I think that being a former player, a lot of guys do respect that. And you can see the team taking on his identity, like what he was as a player. You know, they're picking up full court, got great energy to them. And I think that being that motivator is a fine coaching style. There's just differences in ways that you want to go about it. But I think that that style is totally fine and it's fitting for Doug. I think being genuine is probably one of the most important things in any aspect of life, but obviously coaching here as well. And the players can really feel that. And yeah, Doug is definitely that motivator guy. And I think that translates to his team. Like you see it with Boogie Ellis. He talked about the energy that he brings and picking up full court, or seeing Colby do that. And Colby texting Doug after the first game in Vegas saying, "That's the worst that you'll get from me. I'll be better," and responding, clearly showing that there is a level of respect there and obviously wants to play well for Doug. So I think that he's very much been, his brand of coach, which I think is appropriate and seems to be doing well.
That's Brenden Nunes, Kings insider down in Vegas, part of the Sactown Sports 1140 team, on location for the Summer League. We'll have all your sights and sounds, not just in talking to Brenden right now and interviews like that, but also on YouTube, on the podcasts, and all over the place where you're going to get that type of one-on-one coverage. So, Brenden, I'm going to ask you my general question I ask everybody down there before we get into the meat and potatoes of the Kings, which is, what can you pull from Summer League? What do you look for? Is it all just whatever, or are there things you're actually keeping an eye open for that are relevant to the regular season?
Yeah, wins and losses don't really do much for me. I do think that it's specific skills that I look for. Like I think back to the first California Classic, and Bam Adebayo is bringing the ball up the floor and playing point guard. And then from there, you start to see more playmaking throughout the course of his. I think seeing the aggressiveness level from Colby Jones change from one game to the next is an encouraging encouraging takeaway that he does respond well. Seeing Drew Timme play make in Sacramento's offense, I don't look at him as necessarily a normal roster guy, but you need valuable players in Stockton as well. And sometimes guys are a little disappointing as well. I will say the two ways. I think Mason Jones has done well. Isaac Jones and Isaiah Crawford haven't really stood out to me necessarily, but obviously it's still very early. For me, I'm typically trying to look for, oh, that's new, some sort of new skill with a guy that I think may be able to translate into eventual play with Sacramento or just NBA.
When you see a guy like Alex Sarr last night go 0 of 15, being the top 2 pick in the draft, we've been talking about that today. You completely blow it. I know the answer is you blow it off at Summer League, but what I'm interested in and what I've been talking about a little bit today is it's probably nothing, of course, but I do feel like this draft is going to be so random in who ends up. Like the best player in the draft was probably picked 16th, and there's almost a guarantee that a top 5 guy is going to be a bust. They're going to be all over the place. They say a draft is a crapshoot. I feel like legit this draft is a crapshoot.
Yeah, it definitely seems like it. Reed Shepherd playing really well, but that Sarr game, man, like I don't know, I can't just ignore that. To take that many shots, be 7 feet tall. He went to the free throw line too, and he didn't score.
Hey, he's not a guard, like you said. It's not like he's
right.
missing threes or nothing. He's a big man.
Yeah, and just needs to play a little bit bigger. I do think extremes on either end, I will take something from those for sure. And it doesn't necessarily mean something for his whole career, but I look at that and I'm like, okay, there's going to be a little bit of a learning curve, which is to be expected. But one of those guys that I think already had that question, kind of what you're getting at there, of this is a 7-foot guy and he's kind of playing like a guard. We need you to play a little bit bigger in my mind, and be more forceful getting to the rim. Like you should be able to at least drop one in.
Unfortunately, it seems like doesn't seem like it is. Perhaps the biggest story going down in Summer League is the number 55 pick in the draft, who has predictably struggled, maybe a little unpredictably, how much he struggled in Bronny James. The Lakers summer league games are always packed. The vicinity there, Laker fans travel well, but it seems like this kid has been in the Goldfish Bowl. Brenden, we were talking about this yesterday. I'm torn between admiring the fact that he does not need the money and has still put in the work, the time, and the effort, coming off a literal heart attack to do this, and his only crime is being LeBron James's son. And on the other side, I think a very fair point that he is LeBron James's son, and he's perhaps taking a spot undeservedly that some other journeyman or somebody trying to break in could take, depending on if he gets a Laker roster spot on the Thanasis Antetokounmpo, type contract. Where do you fall when it comes to Bronny James?
Yeah, I feel bad a little bit. Obviously it's not like he has a bad life going on or anything, and he's got a fine setup, but I don't know. I would imagine in his shoes that there's an aspect of like, you want to have your own journey, and in a way that's kind of getting taken from him in my mind. But the consensus around here, and I agree with it, is that he was going to get picked. It just, because of the LeBron situation, obviously he went to the Lakers specifically, but he was going to get picked. There is a level of talent there. I think that he seems level-headed when you're comparing yourself to Derek White, Davion Mitchell, or even throwing Drew Holiday in there. I think that's a reasonable expectation for his sort of style of play. Interesting defender, great feel for the game. He shot the ball really well at the combine. And the context of last year, obviously, is just pretty screwed with everything that happened with his condition. Obviously, Isaiah Collier being there as well, Boogie Ellis, guys that it made it tough for him to really break the rotation. But everybody believes that he would have been drafted despite this, despite what his name is. It's just the fact that he went to the Lakers is really what came out of this. But I think he's an interesting prospect. I do think that all the coverage can be a little bit much for me when I'm getting a Bleacher Report notification that he scored 4 points in a game. I kind of roll my eyes a little bit, but I get it. It's going to get clicks, but I hope that things go well for him.
Brenden Nunes down in Vegas for Kings Summer League. Devin Carter not playing. That's disappointing. We have not talked, you and I, since the news came out about Devin Carter and the shoulder issue. How did that come down for you when you realized that the lottery pick the Kings made is very likely going to be out until somewhere around the trade deadline? And we were talking about it last week. That's just the reevaluation. This guy may miss most, if not his entire rookie season. Obviously, you don't want to see that, Brenden, but how deeply did that bother you when you heard that, considering he was the number 13 pick of the draft?
Yeah, it was something in hindsight I think I should have realized at the intro presser, because I asked Monty McNair about the importance or the value of getting early production on guys on from guys on rookie deals, and he started by talking about the injury. And I was kind of confused, and obviously in hindsight makes sense. But I think that the 6-month mark when we first got that release is at some point in January. It'd be about a third of the year. And it's not great, but I don't think that it necessarily changes anything. I do think that having these guards on your roster, all of a sudden, it doesn't look like necessarily as much of a logjam. You could be a little bit more patient to move on from Kevin Huerter, if that's still the idea, because he's still valuable and there's less, like I said, of a logjam necessarily with Devin not being there. But I don't think it really changes that much. I would still expect to see him throughout the course of this year. And I'm curious how he went through last season seemingly dealing with this. And it's the 1 year that his shooting numbers were really impressive. So I'm going to try to, dig into that a little bit more, but it's obviously not great. I still doesn't really change anything for me on the idea of taking him, or I would imagine it probably didn't have much of an impact with him falling, quote unquote, to Sacramento there at 13. But I still think long-term, he's a guy that makes a lot of sense. You still need a starting 2. And a lot of your first year in the NBA is just getting used to the travel, the preparation. And, you see a guy like Chet Holmgren do really well in his rookie year because he had that first year as well, I think, to get a feel for everything that goes on. So I still think that the time that he's around the team will be valuable. And eventually, once he gets out there, I think he's going to be a impact player pretty early on, and hopefully can do that in the postseason.
We talked about that. Blake Griffin, Ben Simmons, Joel Embiid, Chet Holmgren. There's a long list of players that missed most, if not their entire rookie year, and ended up having a phenomenal, air quotes, rookie year as well. What has, if anything, his involvement been? I've seen videos of him, in the lineup, hanging around, but he seems, Brenden, like he is engaged with the team as much as he can be.
Yeah, definitely been talking with Doug. He's been around at the practices and, sitting courtside at the games. After Colby Jones hit his second or third three, he's running down the court and Devin stands up and gives him a high five. Or when we're talking to Colby after the game, their second game, last game here in Vegas, Devin comes up behind him, puts bunny ears, and is messing around with them and talking about how did you see this guy today? He was totally balling out. So yeah, definitely seems to be involved. He seems like an outgoing personality for sure. But definitely been around, like I was saying. I think that getting that experience, even if you're not getting the reps, but getting to have the conversations and just see how everything works is still valuable, even though obviously you'd rather him be out there.
You mentioned the shoulder issue, and there are thoughts that maybe if it's not an exact replica, that the surgeries both Huerter and Devin Carter got are very, very similar. And one of the things we've struggled in the offseason with listeners and Kings fans is, should the Kings, who are kind of imbalanced down low right now, should they be making another major move? Should they still be in the market for Kuzma? Markkanen seems kind of, off. Hearing what the Warriors are being asked for, it seems like he's off the table. Levine doesn't make sense anymore. Ingram probably doesn't make sense anymore. Should the Kings still be in the market? Or, and this is what I was bringing up a couple of days ago, Brenden, the Kings have limited assets to work with now, Kevin Huerter being one of them, but at the bottom of his value. Would you rather see Huerter get some games in, maybe up his value, and on top of that be able to assess 20, 30, 40 games of the season, what deficiencies they even need to fill with DeMar DeRozan? Because I'm not convinced we know for a fact what those deficiencies are going to be.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think there's a chance that Kevin Huerter is even more valuable with DeMar on the roster. It's another guy that, draws a lot of defensive attention, kicks out to shooters, is a good, smart playmaker in that aspect. And Kevin's really good in Sacramento's offense. I know that he hasn't shot the ball well, but if he can get some of that rhythm confidence back, like, he's a valuable player. There's a reason that they traded a first-round pick to get him. I think he's on a solid deal and he has some value. So I think that they're back at the point where they can be patiently aggressive, almost, in a way. Opportunistic is typically the wording that I use for them. Of, they're going to call around. I do think that there is an obvious need for an upgrade at the 3-4. You do need another wing forward, a little bit more size on this roster, specifically defensively, in my mind. But right now, it kind of seems like you're adding DeRozan almost feels like you're aiming for what you were able to do that year prior when you led the league in offense. You're doubling down on your strengths, right? Where obviously the defense still not quite there, but the creation that DeMar provides for himself and others, which I think that Kevin could be very valuable in that aspect, is important. And getting your clutch numbers back up, it seems like very much leaning into their strengths. And I think Kevin Huerter is a big part of that. So I'd expect him to be calling around for sure, but I don't think that there's necessarily a need to do anything with him right now, as long as he's still in a fine mindset about coming back to Sacramento.
Well, we hope you get your opportunity to speak with Coach Brown tonight. Just verifying, Chris Verlaud's email address, right, to send that.
I do.
Sure. Not that we're desperate for content, but
I do.
Have fun down there. I tell you the same thing I tell everybody. If you get a chance, and I'll happily pay for the Uber, about 5 miles off the strip, John Mull's Roadkill Grill. It's my favorite thing about Las Vegas. It's in the middle of a suburban area. It's 3 lots that have been taken over by John Mull and his company to create literal world-class barbecue. If you get a chance, for under $20, you get 3 meats piled high, along with a bunch of sides. It is my favorite food experience I've ever had in Vegas. So if you get a chance, get out there.
Yeah, I might need to do that tonight. I'll report back to you.
Okay, brother. I appreciate that. Take care. Safe travel. How long are you down there for?
Come back Friday morning. So
Gotcha.
catching all the games.
Okay. Good luck down there. Good luck on your way back. Thanks as always, brother.
Appreciate it.
All right. That's Brenden Nunes, Sacramento Kings insider for Sactown Sports, joining us with a lot of interesting stuff. We've got a minute left. I'll address the chat, by the way. Hello, chat, and everybody in there. Also on the text line at 916-339-1140.